very important date in history. As you know, it's the anniversary of the Twin Towers demolishing. It is also a very important date. This date, on the 9th of the 11th, 1990, George Bush announced to the US Congress in reference to a New World Order. I will read his speech for you. We stand at a unique and extraordinary moment. This crisis in the Persian Gulf, as grave as it is, also offers us a rare opportunity to move towards an historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, our objective is a new world order. Can emerge a new era freer in the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, more secure in the quest of peace, an era when all nations of the world, east and west, north and south, can prosper and live in harmony. 100 generations have searched this elusive path to peace, while thousands of wars raged across the span of human endeavour. Today, that new world order is struggling to be born, a world quite different than we have known. Now, my fellow Australians and everybody that's concerned, some of this information here is what I've gathered, and we've gathered through our other politically active people who know and are endeavouring to rectify the problem. I want to speak to you about our Taxation Act and how that's crippling this country. Now, the New World Order is a socialist move. Now, Karl Marx, one of the greatest socialists of all time, manifesto, to achieve socialism, first the elimination of the rights of private property, the destruction of the family unit, and the destruction of religion. Now, the best way to cripple people is to take away their financial assets and their financial way of life. Now, why I want to talk about tax is because in 1953, in this country of Australia, we passed the Dual Reciprocal Tax Act. That's what we've been led to believe. Where if you're manufacturing, investing or conducting business in this country, you need not pay tax in this country, but tax in the country of origin. On the 28th of October 1996, here is the document here. Then the Assistant Commissioner of Taxation, Mr. Jim Kalali, stated multinationals have paid no tax or little tax since 1953. That same year, 87% of all tax collected come from the PAYE, 9% from corporate Australia. But 90% of corporate Australia that year was owned by the multinationals. That same year, 7,000 companies claimed international status. So you can see where the burden of tax is lying with the people of this country to shore up the inadequate tax system that we have here. It has been highlighted in the press of recent how companies are not paying tax, any tax, and even 1 cent in the dollar. Bearing in mind that we don't have any big manufacturing companies left here. To emphasise the fact of how tax is crippling the people, we'll just go to the general desire of everyone in this country to own their own home. Here is a document from the Sunday Telegraph, February the 16th, 2014. Hidden taxes in a home. In a $640,000 home, there's $250,000 worth of hidden taxes. So the first home buyer is being taxed. Why is he being taxed? Because the top end of town, the multinationals, are paying no tax. So we then introduced, there was only 2 dissenters, by the way, in that 53 Tax Act that didn't agree with it. It was Clyde Cameron and Eddie Ward. All the rest agreed with it. And ever since then, it's been prostituted by everyone else. Just recently, Joe Hockey came out and they highlighted the several companies in Australia that are not paying tax and avoiding tax. And he said, oh, the Labor Party were in for 6 years and they didn't do anything about it. But John Howard was in power for 13 years, nor did he do anything about it. And the general trend is, oh, if we tax them, they'll go to some other country. But they can't go to any other country because that tax system is not available. So then to catch the people, we introduced the GST. I affectionately call it the grab, snatch and take. Other people call it the government swindle tax. I have here a document out of the Daily Telegraph, the 1st of the 12th 2000. Statisticians admit defeat on GST impact. The Australian Bureau of Statistics yesterday admitted its own estimate of the GST price rise was implausible, making it impossible to work out the country's true inflation rate. The failure keeps up the pressure on interest rates, with the Reserve Bank unable to accurately determine whether inflation is taking off. The inflation soared to a 10-year high in September quarter, following the introduction of the 10% GST. Prices rose by 3.7% in 3 months, more than 4 times the inflation rate of the previous quarter. Whilst the GST was almost certainly to blame for the most of the rise, financial markets and the Reserve Bank want to know what would have happened if prices were excluded. But an attempt by the ABS, that's the Australian Bureau of Statistics, to determine the precise impact of the GST ended in failure. So that proves implicitly, my fellow Australians, that our taxation system is way out of order. The PAYE works from Monday to Thursday morning paying some form of tax, whether it's income tax, payroll tax, superannuation tax, council tax, petrol tax, superannuation tax, and all. We had a man in 1997, Senator Bill Murray, this is a copy of the Hansard, who wanted to look into the Foreign Investment Measures Bill. He subsequently got defeated because the powers that be don't want the truth known. But the truth is well known now, and you can all source these companies that are not paying tax, and the PAYE is paying the burden. Petrol tax shouldn't be in. The price of petrol, which is the most horrendous impost on people, because everything in this country has got to be transported, and we're the largest island continent in the world, spread over the largest area. Tax again. Then when you start to think that we're selling all our land to foreign companies who are going to have paddock to plate, no transaction, so they're going to avoid tax. So our competitive rate for our farmers in the rural sector is going to be horrendous. I'm frightened to think what's going to happen, as I just described to you, our housing factor. Our young people of today, it's going to be impossible for them to afford a home because rents are high, taxation's high, and all the taxes involved in land, and they keep importing more taxes on it because the top end of town's not paying tax, so we're finding a way to find a leeway out of it. I'm frightened to think that our tax system may be rectified by virtue of the fact of Australia becoming the nuclear waste dump of the world. There is a map where it is proposed to go, Billacalina, South Australia. To emphasise the fact of it is true, there is a copy of a Liberal Party fundraiser. We will tell you who was there. The caption under the photograph, ladies and gentlemen, radio personality Alan Jones speaking at a recent Dana Vale luncheon at the Engadine Hotel, a fundraiser for the Liberal Party. In that document, Mrs Vale also said the member for the electorate of Hughes will not continue to be a Labor nuclear waste dump for 1 minute, lasting longer than I can help. 2 shipments of spent fuel rods have been returned to the US since 1996. And our government is currently investigating the suitability in Billacalina region of South Australia as a suitable site for a national nuclear waste repository. So what will happen here, they'll run us into a massive debt, as we know, and Joe Hockey and they all keep saying that Labor created the debt and everyone else created the debt, but the Liberal Party created the debt too. So they'll get us into a situation, along with that New World Order as I've just explained, and say, Australia, we can get you out of the debt. This is the simple way. We'll make you the nuclear waste dump, and there's billions in it. It's called the Pingara Company. The president of the Pingara company at one time was Sir Gustav Nussel. Now, unless we address this taxation system, Australia has got no other alternative than we've got to go down the gurgler, because our manufacturing, our farming sector is being crippled by it, and it'll go back to the Karl Marx situation with his classic statement. Taxation is a political tool to suppress and control a country. And the best way to control people is either by fear or hunger. Now, hunger can be put into a couple of categories. If you haven't got enough to disperse to buy and provide for your family, you're in that situation. And then they think that the government's going to help you. I'm sorry to say, it won't. And you cannot, you cannot tax yourself into prosperity. And it all started with that 1953 Tax Act, as I've shown you, and Mr. Jim Kalali stated that multinationals have paid no tax or little tax since 1953, and unless we address this situation, and there's a simple way out of it, we will all be at a loss. And as I've shown you before, there is Mr. Jim Kalali again in the Canberra Times in 2010, emphasising the fact again. I won't go into any more detail on that, because this tax then affects us with other things we will speak about again today. So I will leave it there, then we'll go into the taxes and the treaties and the loss of our farmers through treaties that we've signed, which will shock you. Thank you very much. That's all right, isn't it?